Hello guys, this is Modest Major here, bringing you some commentary over some Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The gameplay in the background will not be that important, and I've actually chosen a section where I'm pretty much failing at everything, so that there's not too many spoilers or anything, so don't worry. I will edit it out so that there's nothing of any interest other than you can look at the graphics, I guess, and just make a slightly uninformed decision on it. But actually, what I wanted to talk about today, well, before I go into that, I want to say, just give a brief overview, maybe a more serious overview of what my channel's going through right now and what I intend to do with the channel, because I'm aware to some people, they're just seeing a couple of videos, pop up on their feed. I've been doing daily videos all this week, and I intend to do daily videos for about a month, maybe 2 months, depending on how I feel about the situation. Most of them have been, well, all of them have been stream highlights. Some serious, some a little bit more lighthearted or bordering on deranged. But essentially what I'm going for with this channel is just kind of trying to recapture what I used to do, but at the same time not being afraid to try it with a new style, trying to fit the new 10-minute format for YouTube. I mean, the 10-minute format is done for monetization reasons, and I don't really care about that. I would care more about getting Twitch subscribers and spending more time on Twitch. I'm really loving Twitch. But I just want, I love to watch YouTube highlights. YouTube highlights are my favorite part. To be honest, I don't even watch Twitch streams. I watch people's highlights. It's really great to have my own little place to hang out with people, but I'm quite a exhibitionist, so I like to be the center of attention. So sometimes being in people's Twitch chats just doesn't do it for me. I'm like, nah, I want to be a main focal point of this, I want to be a main cog in the wheel. So I just prefer streaming all the time myself, having a nice audience to hang out with, chat with, ask questions, answer questions, stuff like that. I think it's really, really, really enjoyable. And the highlights is more I'm a bit of a hypocrite if I don't watch Twitch streams, but all I provide is Twitch streams. I think me putting out YouTube videos gives something for the people who don't have as much time, or just want to skip to the good parts, or just see how I'm doing but don't necessarily want to commit loads of time to watching my stream. I think that's perfectly fine if you feel like that. That's basically what I would be like. But I want all sorts of people to be able to view my content, hopefully, is the bottom line. But yeah, I'm going to be making this daily content, and then I thought I'll sprinkle in these old style commentaries like this video is going to be, where it will just be full commentating for the entire time. I know a lot of people really enjoyed that, and a lot of people are probably upset that that's not really a part of YouTube anymore. That's an age of YouTube gone by. And that might be one of my favorite styles of YouTube video making, is just the stream of consciousness, long form monologues. I think stuff like that is really, really entertaining. It's just that people find a lot of trouble coming up with the topics, especially if your big game isn't out and you don't have a big game to riff on. You get into this problem where you're well, what am I going to do? How am I going to make content this regularly if I have nothing interesting to talk about? And don't get me wrong, I've had my fair share streaks of that, which is why adding in, a variety of a bit of live stream and a bit of commentary will give something for everyone, and it will allow me to disperse my content and mean that I'm always fresh to it. I always have something fun to do. I actually love doing long form commentaries if I've got a good idea in my head before of a topic to talk about, and now it means that I don't need to make it when I don't. I can just wait for that exciting idea to pop up. And today, I think there's quite a lot to talk about in regards to next-generation hardware, next-generation gaming as a whole. And I think a lot of people are on the fence about what system they want to get. I think all the systems look a lot more promising than average. When I look back to how I felt about the Xbox One and how I felt about the PS4, I was excited for the Xbox One because it was a continuation from the 360, but everything I saw was a little bit of a red flag to me. If you recall the Xbox One TV presentation, there's a video you can go on YouTube where you just watch them talk about it, and literally they say the word TV about 100 times, and the YouTube video just cuts from TV to TV. TV. It's awful. It's shameful. And before Xbox One was coming out, all the the heads of staff and stuff like that, heads of departments were literally chasing their tail around because they had no idea what was going on. They tried to cater towards TV, but it obviously, to me, they kind of did what Nintendo Wii did, where they alienated a lot of their old audience. But the difference was their gimmick absolutely took off. Like, when they decided to go the motion sensor route, they came right place, right time, right device. People were super into it and super, you know, on board for it. But the difference with Xbox is people were not ready for TV, and they grossly misjudged their market. They'd actually built quite a hardcore market during the Xbox 360 phase, and they kind of just spat on them. And, you know, people who were interested in TV, there's so many media devices now that, like, it was just a really lazy idea, I feel like, you know, that was obviously influenced by shareholders. And when your console is completely subject to shareholders, it just feels so dead inside, which is how Xbox One felt. The PS4, obviously, like, I think PS4 was a bit underwhelming when it came out, but it's obviously built a massive library now, and it's pretty entertaining, pretty good console around. But even hardware-wise, when you look at the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, which is an awful name, by the way, like, they really messed up. You know, they want people to trust them and, like, you know, oh, we're making games for gamers, and then they come out with Xbox Series X, which sounds like a new breed of vacuum cleaner or something like that. It's just like, how could they, you know, how could they miss the point that much, in my opinion? And their naming conventions are so all over the place and confusing. You got PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. Cool, I know what each one is. Xbox Series X, Xbox One X, Xbox One. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Hello? You know, it's just been bad. And then you've got Nintendo, you know, obviously spunked it with the Wii U, but now they've really turned it around with the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo Switch has been silently dominating the sales force. And I think, like, a lot of us like, sat there like, well, you know, what console is worth getting? Now, for disclaimer, I do have a Nintendo Switch already. You know, that came out a while ago, and I'm very entertained by the system. I think, you know, you kind of want to get a Switch and then one other system alongside a Switch. Like, Switch is going to do what it does, and it does what it does great, in my opinion, but it's almost like a hybrid handheld system with all the classic Nintendos. You know, it's got its own niche, but it's not going to cover everything that unless you have a PC alongside that. If you don't care about Nintendo, obviously you don't need to buy it. And then you've got kind of the decision between PC and, PS5 and Xbox Series X, or do you just bun that all together and try and wait for an Nvidia card to become available? Which in itself is a pretty hard task. I've seen a couple come up on Amazon recently, but they're 100 quid more expensive than retail price because they're being sold from a third-party seller. To be honest, 100 quid extra isn't that bad a price, and part of me, you know, my PC has been... I'm by no means a PC master racer. I don't even like using mouse and keyboard. I try and use controller where possible. I'm not a big PC guy, but... it has been a godsend having this PC in my life in terms of comfortability, in terms of accessibility to new games and stuff like that. You know, I bought at the time, it was a 1070 Ti. It was pretty good for its time, but I've had it for a number of years. And it's still, you know, I just play Assassin's Creed. I play it on medium, totally fine. You know, I can even flex a bit on high, but I just don't bother because I want really good performance on it. But, you know, it still probably looks better. You know, it's still probably measuring up decently. You know, it's 120 FPS or unlocked FPS. It's still measuring up decently to the new consoles. However, I just think PS5 has actually done a really tremendous job in terms of showing off the architecture and the breakdown of the console, and it just looking really impressive to me. Like, even the little stuff like there being dust catchers on the system, I just keep going back to that thought and thinking how many times I would have liked that with, like, the Xbox 360, the Xbox One. Most of the reason those consoles ever had any problems or ever degraded was because they were literally littered in dust. And something about consoles, they capture a lot more dust. Like, my PC, all its vents are to the side, so the likelihood of it catching dust is just less, but the dust would just sit on top of your console. And if you ever stopped using it for a while, you would come back to it and it would just literally be caked in dust. And you knew it was in the system, but, like, unless you were someone who could take apart these things, which you're not even meant to because it voids warranty, your console could literally just be basically trashed. And I think that's sad. And I think the fact that the PS5 have actually thought about this and they've got dust catchers is an honestly awesome situation. The Xbox Series X, like, I don't know. I'm very on the fence about that system. I think it's probably going to be better than the Xbox One. But at the end of the day, you know, do I think it looks revolutionary? Do I think it brings, you know, good enough games to the table to impress us? I really couldn't advocate for that. You know, I just kind of like, and it would be interesting to hear your guys' opinion, because obviously a lot of people who would have watched my channel, they came from Halo, you know, they've been Xbox fanboys. Trust me, I used to be the biggest Xbox 360 fanboy on the planet, but really my consumer loyalty to that brand has gone completely out the window. I just think they haven't done anything right by the customer in terms of hardcore gamers. And that's kind of the niche they had set out towards the beginning of the 360 era. For me, they were better at covering, like, especially hardcore multiplayer gamers than any other, you know, like, even if you didn't have Halo, Gears of War 1 and 2 were pretty great games. You know, you had your Borderlands, which were obviously dual platform, but there was just always, like, games to play for multiplayer that were great. And they, you know, dominated on that system, and they had such high population numbers that bouncing from game to game and playing multiplayer sessions all day was just so easy and beneficial. And when I'd go on PS4, I'd be like, what should I do right now? Like, who should I talk to? What game should I play multiplayer? And, you know, obviously you had the dual platforms, but that was kind of all they had, whereas Xbox had these mainstay flagship titles that just seemed to be getting better each time, until, spoiler alert, they didn't get better, and they declined. But, you know, obviously, there's not much reason to play Halo Infinite on console because it's going to be on PC, and a lot of people have a PS. You know, a lot more people have a PC nowadays, and getting a middle-of-the-range PC is actually pretty affordable. You know, I hear a lot of people when I was talking to people at my work, Amazon. You know, a lot of people were commenting like, oh, you know, but like, oh, who's going to buy you know, the graphics card costs way more than the console itself, and that's just the graphics card. What about all the components? But I think if you shopped around smart and talked to the right people, I think the accessibility for getting a decent PC nowadays is great. You know, the PC I have would work fine for the average person. It would be like having a console, and it comes with so much more range. I hate to sound like this guy because I normally hate the people who are like, oh, you know, pick out a PC, just get a PC. You know, sometimes you want a console, and of course there are like accessibility and luxurious things that come with that. You know, if you're a controller gamer as well, it's obviously really nice to get like a PS5 controller with your system and just have your own little dashboard. That's another thing. Like, I really haven't liked the way that the Xbox UI has gone over the last few years. I think they've absolutely just tried to turn it into this weird hybrid of PC and Xbox, and it's all tablet-y, and it just has no sense of unique identity. What I really like about a console is when you've been on a console for a whole day and it feels like you're living in it, almost like you're in the Xbox world now. You know, when you were in party chat and you had your blades open, or even just the newer Xbox 360 menu system was just like really refreshing. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure you guys understand where I'm coming from, the comfort and the luxury of it. And now it just feels like, you know, Ghost UI. It just feels like clicker tab, like, oh, you know, it's like you're just being interfaced like a robot or something like that. I don't know how to explain, you know, why it is I feel that way. I just know I feel that way, you know. They're just so ghostless and lifeless, these newer Xbox UIs. And every time they change them, it doesn't really seem to, you know, benefit the end user that much. Like, sometimes it even creates problems in terms of there being newer parts of the, you know, back menus where you're just like, where am I going? Where am I? Hello? Whereas the PS5 menus I actually think look really nice, and stuff like being able to record the achievements. I know it's a small deal, but back when I used to achievement hunt, I would have killed for something like that. The fact that you can like clip little bits and immediately extract them, I think that's really, really sick. And I think overall, they've just like Xbox, I would find very hard to recommend. To be honest, from my perspective, out of the four, I think it would be the weakest one. I think it would probably go PC and PS5 tied, Nintendo Switch on the side. You know, like, it's still really good, but you know, I could see someone not wanting it if they're not a diehard Nintendo fan, or if they just don't have the need for like a portable console. I get that. I personally love portable gaming, like being able to sit in my bed and just chill and play like a, you know, a chill game in between doing other stuff. I think that's really, really sick. But I just think the Xbox comes lowest on this list of consoles next generation. Until they can pull out a game where it's like, hey man, this is worth it. And they've kind of like shot Xbox in the foot by making Halo Infinite not exclusive to it. Because if Halo Infinite's great, like I obviously hope it is, you know, most people are going to go on PC, and there might even be a bigger fan base. Plus, it's like dual platform, so it's not like you're going to miss your Xbox friends or anything if you do choose to go on PC. There's actually no reason for having the exclusivity, and an Xbox is worse. Like, I guess it's like a price thing, because you could buy an Xbox Series S, and then, you know, the price of that would be really nice, and it would be way more accessible to get into. Not to mention COVID. I think COVID has just screwed things up, and, you know, people won't be able to get the stock for their PC parts, so they end up getting a console, or people people won't be able to get the stock for the PS4, 5, so they go for the Xbox. You know, I almost considered getting the Xbox the other day because there was so much more availability for it where I am compared to the PS5. The PS5 is just dead until the 19th where they get more pre-orders in. But, you know, who knows how quick they're going to go. I think PS5 is going to get absolutely rinsed. Like, people... I know so many people who are like, I really want a PS5, really want a PS5, can't wait till they go cheaper, or can't wait till they come back on stock, etc., etc. And it's just becoming an absolute arms race in terms of who can get the stock up quick. Because if you get the stock out, you know, same with the Nintendo Switch, same with NVIDIA graphics cards, we're in an absolute stuck position where it's just like, oh man, like I really hope I can get something before Christmas, or is that even going to be possible, or am I going to have to settle for something that I don't like, you know, as much? Yeah. It's definitely an interesting situation, but I kind of want to get your guys' bearings as well, because if you guys have an answer to the, like, debate yourself, I guess, I'd really be curious to know if you think that, like, no, Xbox is worth it for these reasons, you know, and I'm not talking gimmicks, like, I'm not going to give a free pass just because they have that, like, loading from game to game thing. That's nice, yeah, but I think, A, it might be on PS5 to some extent, and B, even if it's not like a game... Those are just nice little bells and whistles. I want to know if anyone's got one, or anyone's thinking of getting one, and they're like, dude, this feature is going to kill it for me, or these reasons are going to kill it for me. You know, maybe the Game Pass. I think the Game Pass is probably the most viable option, but I actually think Sony have a better backlog of games. I think Xbox has, like, a nice cream of the crop, but it's not the... You know, you're going to start getting some pretty mid-tier games in that list of Games Pass, whereas Sony has so many titles, and it still has titles that it could release. You know, Nintendo as well, for that matter, just have an absolutely epic back catalog. So yeah, I'd be curious to get your guys' take. Anyway, this has been Modest Major. Thanks for watching. Peace.